My name is Drew Waldron, and I am on with authors, innovation and leadership experts, and founders of the Work3 Institute, Deborah Piscione and Josh Drean. Deborah, Josh, it's great to see you both.
Great to see you too, Drew.
Thanks for having us.
Deborah, we'll begin with you. You're both promoting your new book, Employment is Dead: How Disruptive Technologies Are Revolutionizing the Way We Work. Now, I'll begin with a very, very broad question. Why is employment dead?
Drew, that is the question we get over and over. And we don't want to put enormous fear into people that employment is dead, but we are seeing the development of a bifurcated work track. And what we mean by that is, yes, you can remain in the traditional workforce and see the levels of disengagement and unhappiness that people are experiencing at work, or there's this entirely new way to work and be able to provide for a sustainable living, whether it's having a portfolio career where you're cobbling together various projects, and then we're going to start to move into this decentralized work opportunity. And I'll let Josh weigh in more on that because he's a great expert on it. But it's a really exciting time because everything we know about work and the way we work is now just going to become obsolete. And it's about time because we've really been stuck in this Taylorism way of work since 1911, where people are cogs on a wheel and they have one function. We have all this technology coming, and we can really reimagine not only the way we work, but our lives in general and who we are with our communities and our families.
Something has to change. And Josh, Deborah mentioned that we have data that shows that employees are more disengaged now more than ever. Why do you think this?
I mean, it goes to Deborah's point, right? Is that we are clinging to these outdated practices that we feel we need in order to do great work and to be more productive. And it's almost like this relentless drive towards productivity using the old way of work is having the inverse effect. And employees are feeling it, right? They are wholly disengaged. They are quiet quitting. They are jumping from job to job. And companies are trying to figure out why that is. And the bold claim that we make in the book is that traditional models of employment are failing to adapt to the needs of the modern workforce. The reason they're so disengaged is because we aren't leveraging these emerging technologies to make work exciting, to help them have more purpose at work. A good example would be management, right? Management is really just a tool that we invented at a time where you needed to be on an assembly line and do one job fairly efficiently. We don't live in that world anymore. In the world of AI, we need people who are prompt engineers, who are interested in being creative and trying new things. And this kind of controlling atmosphere that we're in at work not only is turning off the workforce, but it is driving down productivity. So in the book, we actually talk quite a bit about what can you do? How can you start doing it? And how does work look different? And we hope that will unlock that, not only the productivity, but the fulfillment of workers in the workforce.
Absolutely. And a lot of those points you mentioned, technology revolutionizing workplaces, quiet quitting, a lot of those words are associated with COVID era. Deborah, after nearly 5 years of COVID's impact on the workplace, what changes in the American workplace have surprised you the most?
I think the changes are, obviously we were forced to adopt a different way. And what it did reveal is, as Josh referred to, the old command and control style should no longer be a part of the 21st century. And so we need to be thinking about how do we as leaders look to collaborate, think of our workers, not even employees so much anymore, as partners. We're moving into this generation, not only in the era of AI and Web3 technologies, we can completely reimagine how work gets done, the collaboration between the people who pay us and the workers who get done. And we can really start to think about shorter work days. We've wanted this European lifestyle for so long. We can absolutely imagine it. We can start to embrace life stage flexibility where maybe I'm a young worker and I'm just fresh out of college, or I didn't go to college at all. And I do want to be in a workplace for 5 days a week, but work a much shorter day. But perhaps I just had my first child and I want to work 2 days a week. At the end of the day, what we really strive to get this new mindset around is this is about productivity and not time, or, it just is what it is at the end of the day, knowing that a worker is contributing in a very meaningful way. And it doesn't matter if it takes 2 hours or it takes 2 days. It's just we need to recognize people's individual value.
My God, would I love a European lifestyle and a European work week. Josh, you had mentioned, new generation coming in, Gen Z. I myself am a member of Gen Z. What are the biggest changes that you're seeing as this younger generation went through COVID? A lot of them went through college in the era of COVID and entered the workforce in the era of COVID. What are the biggest changes that you're seeing with that generation entering the workplace and changing attitudes around?
Yeah, I mean, Gen Z is completely changing the work landscape, so much so that it is hard for companies to fathom what it's like to engage them. We're seeing stats come out that, managers, half of managers aren't even willing to hire Gen Z because they lack the skills or the abilities, or they're lazy or they're entitled. It's the same trope that we saw when millennials came into the workforce. I wholly reject that. I just think that, like, look, they are the emerging generation. They have new and exciting expectations, and we need to be listening to them, right? When you were like Gen Z, I was like, hey, tell me more, Drew, what it's like to be in the workforce. I attribute it to this, right? They are engaged in their communities that they have built on their own through video games, through Discord, through social media. And they go to college to get a degree, and they're kind of like, okay, what is this about? And then they enter the workforce and they're really disengaged. They don't understand why they can't bring their full self to work, or they can't build a community in the same way that they've done it. And so these expectations are driving a whole new movement for companies to either get on board and decentralize a bit, or, continue to do things the way that they've always been done. Here's a perfect example. Deborah and I write about the 10 operating principles of Work 3. One of those principles is decision making. Decision making traditionally is, I am a boss, there's a hierarchy, I make the decisions, and everyone just has to fall in line. Well, in a decentralized world, take, for instance, a game on Roblox. You have 100 kids who come into a room and they're like, what game do you want to play? Here's 3 choices. Everyone votes, and whatever game gets the most votes commences without argument. It might sound super simple, but that level of decision making and outsourcing it to the collective wisdom of the group is going to allow a company, a decentralized organization, if you will, to be able to make hundreds of decisions a day based on the collective wisdom of the group instead of one person making that decision. And that's how decisions are already being made on Discord with these communities, and it's going to continue to happen. We need to adopt that same model in work or risk obsolescence.
What makes this generation so different, Gen Z, is the fact that they've already adopted the technologies of the future. So we're almost flipping organizations on their head in terms of who has the knowledge for the future of the organization and the future of business. And something that Josh mentioned is so critical. We cannot underestimate Gen Z's ability to build community and leverage that community to change things that we thought were never possible. So what I mean by that specifically, if you look at just the usage of Reddit and being able to save GameStop, nobody ever thought we would ever have an impact on hedge funds, or you look at Occupy Wall Street and the adoption of cryptocurrencies during that time. I mean, this all came from the younger generations. And so leaders really need to wake up and say they have enormous value, Gen Z, on what the future holds. And the quicker that traditional organizations understand that and figure out how to rearrange work to accommodate them, the better off they're going to be. And for the rest of those organizations that don't adopt AI quickly, Web3 technologies, and integrate Gen Z, they're going to be obsolete, or at least acquired and swallowed up. So we are going to see not only less organizations, larger organizations, but much smaller organizations in the future due to technology such as AI. There's just been a lot of force changed upon us in terms of the way we work. Certainly economic woes coming out of COVID have greatly impacted what the organization needs to do now, the pressure for profitability, for shareholders. And that's why I think the future of work is so interesting, because there's going to be so many opportunities to get away from the pressures of whether it's a board of directors or a CEO or middle managers that don't work. AI has the potential to replace all of the above and be in a much more cohesive environment. But I think some of these changes are really hard. We know for larger enterprises, with regards to integrating or adopting AI at a faster rate, it's still incredibly costly. We need to deal with our 40-year-old grid system to be able to accommodate all the AI coming into play here. And, making change is hard, particularly if you have a bunch of workers workers, middle managers, or leaders, C-suites for that matter, who are not adapted to where the world is heading. And so I constantly get asked the question, what do we do about the older generations? It has nothing to do with the older generations. It has everything to do with that growth mindset and adaptability. And if you don't have it, you need to explore another career path, because that is going to be one of the most functional, critical characteristics of leadership in the future is very fast adaptability, because we are seeing skills right now that are going to have halftime advantages because things are moving so fast.
Certainly. And Josh, I want to point this next question to you. Deborah, you mentioned AI integration, and sometimes it feels like a lot of these companies are just trying to integrate AI into an already existing product in ways that sometimes aren't super helpful. I think about the Google search integration from earlier this year. Josh, what do you think the difference is between just throwing AI at a wall and seeing if it sticks with your product, or actually integrating AI in a meaningful, helpful, and productive way?
Yeah, we're going deep here, right? AI is here to stay. So many people have already seamlessly integrated it into their every single day lives. And so what does that tell you as a company, right? We're seeing two camps, right? One camp is like, AI, we need to use it, so let's do it. So let's make some decisions. I literally just gave a presentation to KPMG Athens about this. And it's like, if you don't understand your strategy behind bringing in AI, then you're going to fail. And if you're not using AI daily, you're not going to know how to implement it. So a lot of times it just comes with tinkering with the tool first and foremost, and also avoid AI washing. There are a lot of companies who are packaging their products as AI, and it in fact is not AI. It's just a marketing tool. So watch out for that hype cycle. Have a strong strategy underneath it, and also, like Deborah said, follow the lead of the younger generation. They've already seamlessly integrated it into their lives. Let's continue to build products that are seamlessly integrated into our clients' lives in a similar way.
And Drew, I would just add to what Josh is saying. Part of the biggest problem is the data that exists within these organizations. It's not quite up to snuff to have the AI efficiency that it needs. So in other words, if you're in a sales or marketing function, you really need to ensure that these LLMs, these learning models, don't offend your customers because your data is not quite where it needs to be. So there are some challenges. I mean, this is hard stuff, but anytime you make a massive transformation, it's not supposed to be easy, and it's pretty costly in the beginning, but eventually those costs come down and we figure out how to make this much more seamlessly integrated into these larger enterprises.
Certainly. If we could take a step back from AI, I want to get back to the book, your co-authorship. How did you begin? We'd love to hear about the origin of Deborah and Josh as a partnership.
Josh, you want to tell that story?
Yeah, it is fascinating. We actually write this in the intro of the book. This was kind of at the era of Web3 and the metaverse, and there was a lot of hype around that. Deborah was running a conference out of Silicon Valley around Web3, and I was at the Harvard Innovation Labs doing some deep research around that and working with startups who were interested in building into these interoperable worlds. So I put together what I thought was the future of work in a proposal and sent it there. I got a call a couple days later from Deborah, not quite sure what to expect, but it wasn't come speak at my conference. It's like, hey, are you willing to write a book on this? And it was just such a natural yes from me. We kind of started down the path, just putting together a proposal, and the proposal came together so efficiently. We ended up having way more pages than we needed, and we ended up having several publishers interested in the book. So we obviously are very passionate about where this is headed, and we're on to something. We're excited about it.
And what makes our collaboration so extraordinary, Drew, is the fact that I come from the innovation side of things. Josh comes more from the HR world. And so it's really understanding the organization comprehensively from both sides, because my lens is everything from growth and strategy, but you can't have growth and strategy without the people component taking an even higher priority than it does in organizations right now. And we also come from different generations. We have Gen Z and Gen Alpha kids. So just really this wide breadth of this digital divide, if you will, among generations, and trying to understand the level of importance of how fast these technologies are coming at us and how quickly we need to adopt them.
So not only through your new book, but through your work at the Work3 Institute, you talk about the 10 principles of Work 3 and Web 3 that businesses need to adapt. What can you tell us about that?
Drew, it's so critical to remember. It's almost like you've got to think about the future of work as a three-legged stool. You have the technology, you have the people, but a critical aspect is going to be the leadership. And we have this very outdated mindset in terms of how we think of our people at work. So it's very critical to adopt an entirely new mindset that includes things like flexibility and decision making and allowing people, trusting your people to be able to make these decisions, particularly those who are closest to the job. I've realized throughout the years in my innovation work, some of the biggest innovations had nothing to do or didn't come from leadership, but those people who are really engaged in that day-to-day job on the front line often had the biggest ideas. So it is a really important function to make sure that we adopt a new mindset as we think of the future of work moving forward.
Yeah, I'll also say, I work a lot with HR leaders, and I will display the 10 operating principles of work and say, can you offer any of your people any of these today? The answer is no. It's a very clear, why should they work for you? They have a lot of needs, and these needs are going to continue to become further and further away from traditional employment. For example, Deborah mentioned flexibility. They want to work how, when, and where they want. They want ownership over the value they generate for the company. Cut them in, not just arbitrary stock. This is contribution-based compensation. They want to be a partner in the decision-making process. And so there's some pretty, in terms of yes, there's a large mindset that we need to shift. There's also some pretty low-hanging fruit items that we can start working on today if we are willing to see them. That's why we are so big on making sure that we identify each principle as a need and work to address them.
What a partnership. Deborah and Josh, it's been awesome to sit down and interview you these past 20 or so minutes. And we have time for one more question. We always end on a question like this. So feel free to answer it however you'd like. What advice you have for young people? And Deborah, you're at the beginning of my screen, so I'll let you take this one first.
Yeah, I am a big risk taker. And I think taking risk is the difference between having an extraordinary life and an ordinary life. And you have to ask yourself in taking that risk, what's the worst thing that can happen? Clearly, if you're going skydiving or bungee jumping, there could be some dire consequences. But if you're just trying things and maybe it doesn't work out as you anticipate or it fails, you're learning so much along the way. So I like to embrace risk because we only have one life. So I'd rather have the extraordinary aspect of life and try a lot of things and figure out what sticks.
Take risks. Josh, what about yourself?
Yeah, I love that, Deborah. That is so fantastic. And Deborah has lived a life that is truly a testament to that. Her and her kids are one day skydiving or traveling the world or jumping in the ocean. There's always something going on over there. So I love to see that you very much practice what you preach there. I would like to say as well, you know more than you think you do. We spend so much time listening to our quote elders, if you will, or fitting into the box and doing it the way that it's been told to us or finding how it's always been done. But there's a lot of elements that the younger generation has at your fingertips that are going to serve you more than trying to fit in. So I would say on top of taking risks is, don't try to fit the mold so much. When you do that, you start to discover new and exciting things. We are telling you that the mold is dead, right? The employment is dead. And we are still carving out what the future of work looks like. These technologies still have to prove themselves. That's the younger generation that's going to build it.
Yeah, you have to walk your own path. I love hearing that, as you said, Deborah, you both have children of your own, Gen Z, Gen Alpha. I think that's such great advice for the next generation. Thank you both so much for taking the time to be here.
Thank you for having us, Drew.
Excellent. Well, that is going to conclude our conversation with Josh Drean and Deborah Perry Piscione, authors of Employment is Dead, out soon. And if you'd like more information, check out their pages at apbspeakers.com. Thank you.